Teague wanted to pitch him over the guardrail. Most days he and Prentice were close friends, maybe best friends, but as colleagues they spent a lot of time virtually on top of one another, often in close spaces or on dangerous terrain. Prentice might be a much larger man, but Teague had never let himself be bullied, not by anyone. Of course, most of the time he didn't have it coming. Today, maybe he did. "Try it again." "I don't want to flood it," Prentice said. He might be angry, but his eyes were bright with the fear of a dog in the lights of an oncoming car. "Start the fucking truck." Prentice turned the key. The engine coughed again, started to grind, and the floor dropped out of Teague's stomach. He loved his work, but he didn't want to die for it. The engine caught, growled to life, and left Teague and Prentice staring at each other, relieved but still amped up. "You fell asleep behind the wheel," Prentice said, his voice only a rasp above the rumble of the engine. Teague exhaled, his body finally registering just how cold he was. Even with all his layers, he felt it in his bones. His exposed face stung as if with sunburn, but he knew this feeling, understood it was just the brutal cold. Clouds hid what passed for daylight in Siberia in the winter. The display in the truck had read 30 below zero Celsius, and it would get much colder in mid-afternoon when the sun went down. Even now, that sting would turn into frostbite in 10 minutes or so, if they stayed out there on the road and he left his face uncovered. He reminded himself not to face the elements without pulling on his balaclava. Growing up, he just called those things ski masks, but Prentice always corrected him. 70s bank robbers wore ski masks, apparently, while secret agents and assassins wore balaclavas, as if he needed Jack Prentice to teach him how to be cool. Okay, maybe he did. "Hey," Prentice said, reaching out of the truck with his boot, nudging Teague with it. "You fell asleep behind the wheel." Teague couldn't deny it. He'd almost killed them, twice. First hitting the guardrail, then turning off the engine. "I'm wide awake now," he said. "You think I'm going to let you drive after that?" Prentice asked. He rubbed a glove across his graying beard. "Jesus Christ, how did you convince me to come here?" Teague ignored the second question. "Look at the road and tell me you want to drive, and I'll happily take a nap in the passenger seat." Prentice exhaled. He turned up the heat, staring out the windshield at the road ahead of them. After a moment, he slid over without a word, and Teague climbed up into the driver's seat. He yanked the door shut, put the UAZ in drive, and started once more along the road of bones. "Don't fall asleep," Prentice said. Teague forced a smile. "Don't bore me to death and I'll stay awake." They'd started the journey in Magadan, a port city on the Sea of Okhotsk in northern Siberia. The city's population hung just below 90,000 and kept declining as the elderly passed on and young people departed. Migration tended to only happen in one direction out here, which shouldn't have surprised anyone. Nobody picked up their lives and decided to seek a fresh start in Siberia. Teague had done plenty of reading about the treacherous weather, especially up the Kolyma highway, but he only began to really understand after the first 200 miles, when his gaze kept shifting between the gas gauge and the roadside. There were gas stations every 150 miles or so, but with the wind and snow, the crunch of tires on permafrost, and the white silence that stretched out around them, the idea of those gas stations began to seem like dreams of a desert oasis. If you ran out of gas on the Kolyma highway in winter, you stood a fair chance of freezing to death. They'd departed Magadan with a full gas tank at 8 o'clock the previous morning, an hour before dawn, and managed a little more than half the 16-hour drive before settling into the accommodations Teague had arranged. They slept at a lodge whose chief appeal was the presence of a garage where the truck's engine and fuel line wouldn't freeze overnight. The stopover was so small, its name had already faded from memory, more like a settlement built around a gas station than a proper town. The Kolyma highway did not draw a lot of tourists.